Good morning, Hallowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hallowed Haven Studios productions. I'm BP, and I'm joined by my co-host, Vironz.
Why, yes, hello, I'm Vironz, and today we're talking about Harsh Static, Episode 2, for the Old World. Last session, they went to Blight Town, messed around with the radio station, but still couldn't find where the signal was coming from. But they did find more junk and brought it to the truck. And there was a very exciting revelation about Iris being from the Institute. I felt like this was just like a very I struggle a bit with my feelings on this one because it was a very combat heavy episode. And you can only have certain thoughts about combat of it succeeding or not. And there really wasn't much in the way of revelations other than the one about Iris. But my thoughts are the only ones here. What are your thoughts, BP?
Well, I struggled a little bit the same because, when a session is about 80 to 90% combat, it's a little hard to have anything particularly deep and meaningful to say. I did think it was fun to finally get the revelation that Iris is a synth and in the same party as a member of the Brotherhood of Steel out there in the open. I found that out during the last episode of After Dawn. But it was fun to finally see it kind of come out in the open during a stream, or at least as in the open as only two members of the party can make it. So I'm curious to see how that impacts things going forward. But mine is not the only opinion here. Today we are joined by Alereg and Adarael, the players behind Dr. Hoffman and Carter. Hello, everyone.
Greetings.
Hello there.
Welcome. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, just trying to weather out the first tropical storm to arrive in Los Angeles ever.
And I'm doing okay, despite the fact that it's about 87 degrees outside. I know that's normal for most Los Angeles folks, but for Northeast Wisconsin, not so much.
What are some highlights from both of you from last session?
Let me see here. I liked the fact that we packed up the Brotherhood folks, took them along, because I know that throughout the history of Fallout, the reputation of the Brotherhood has sort of gone towards heroes to villains, and somewhere in between, because they've always been very secretive about their technology. They've been very snobby in some games with outsiders, and in others there's just we're the best thing since sliced bread. And I like the fact that right now they don't seem to be of the sort who are we don't need help from you dirty wastelanders, we can do it ourselves, especially because they were full of holes. So a chance to get to know them better in the future is something that pleases me as a player.
For me in person, honestly, it was actually the big highlight was the combat in this case, because normally if you're playing, let's say, D&D or let's say Vampire the Masquerade combat, D&D combat goes on forever, and Vampire the Masquerade's kind of loosey-goosey. This one flowed, and it flowed really well, which is actually kind of surprising for me. So the other thing I also really enjoyed was the fact that we had to try and determine whether or not a dog's smelling skill was a tagged skill, and whether or not a truck could technically give vicious damage. Little things.
I feel like both of those made perfect sense with the way that Solomon ruled them. I would certainly give a truck vicious damage. It's not like it cares whether or not the person it's hitting is in pain. But Alereg, you've been on After Dawn a number of times, but this is your first time on as a proper player. How does it feel to be a PC in a game at last instead of, a supporting character? How's it different?
It's a lot more pressure, say that much. as an NPC, a lot of what you do is dictated by what the GM, the DM, the storyteller says. But for the player character, it's a lot more kind of like, okay, how do you want to do this? How do I want to do this? And it's, oh boy, like, crap, I need to make decisions. I'm going to shoot this thing. Wait, no, crap. So it's that moment of like, all right, how would my character approach this? And it's less like, okay, here's how the character is, and more like a, how do I want the character to act in this situation? So
Interesting. Adarael, this is your first HHS production, between your first time being on one of our shows and your first time being on After Dawn. How are you enjoying the experience, and can we expect to see you come back for other shows in the future?
It's definitely an unusual experience because I don't tend to be a player in most games. I tend to run most games that I am in. And secondly, I don't think I've been a player in a Twitch stream that wasn't a one shot ever. So trying to remember to keep my head in the right spot for the camera like takes up an inordinate amount of my mental attention. But I'm definitely enjoying it because it's like, okay, I got to bring something that's not just playing a game, that's sort of a performance to like keep this interesting for anybody who's watching it. And as to future things, it will depend entirely on my schedule. Right now, Solomon snuck this one in at just the right time. Had it happened a month before or a month after, I would have been too busy to say yes. So it will depend on my schedule.
So what you're telling me is that when I want you to come on for, say, Changeling, I have to like make sure that I tell you 6 months ahead of time that you've got to be free for 3 months.
It would be helpful. However, you're speaking the honeyed words of Changeling to me, which is always an easy draw because despite the fact that I played Vampire the Masquerade first, that was the first White Wolf game that I bought, and it holds a very special love. I have a very special love for it because it was actually what got me into being a more serious gamer, because then that was when I started gaming online.
Ah, interesting. Noted for later.
Noted. Very noted. For everyone in the studio.
And Tira was thinking that we'd have to bribe him somehow.
It doesn't hurt. We also have a tradition, Adarael, for After Dawn. We typically like to know what your favorite product is from the World of Darkness game line, or because right now we are doing Fallout, what's your favorite TT RPG at all?
Oh, well, that's like, why don't you ask me which of my children I'd like to get rid of? I'll try and give you a twofer on that, because if we're talking White Wolf games, it's very hard for me to pick a favorite from the World of Darkness, aside from the fact that I just don't really care too much about Werewolf, not because I dislike it, but because I've never gotten into it. But in terms of all of the things that they've published, Exalted is the one that I've stuck with the longest because it appeals to my love of Chinese wuxia cinema and stories like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Though, if I had to pick an all-time favorite for TTRPGs, the one that has shaped entirely too much of my history, it would be the world of Shadowrun. No particular edition, but the world itself was there at the right time when I got into cyberpunk literature and film, and I've been running it since right after second edition came out.
Shadowrun has been one of the ones that was my first one. 5th edition, mind you, as well. That was my first TTRPG ever, and that has been the one that has stuck with me forever as well.
I'm a recent convert to the world of Exalted, and Adarael's why. So,
well, as soon as I heard Exalted, I just went, wait, I thought, because I do not know many people that like Exalted. Also, because I think it's also because that's one of the books where you could actually bludgeon somebody to death with. Isn't that like a 500, 600 page book?
The one that's sitting to my left here, which is the 3rd edition like it's the limited edition. It's got like this white faux leather on it. I believe that's about 630 some odd pages.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It's too big. It's just too big.
It's a good sized book for me. I'm here. I'm down for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, as someone who likes Shadowrun 5th edition, which mind you is also around that size as well, I'm here for it. I'm here for that.
I mostly enjoy the fact that it is better organized than most TTRPG books I've encountered, except for the index, which is awful.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the index is just, it makes me want to cry every time I have to consult it.
It makes no sense, and I've just given up. I'm very glad that my copy is a PDF so that I can just use the search function. It's faster. But to get back on topic, I would like to know what each of yours favorite post-apocalyptic setting or style of setting.
I want Alereg to go first on this one.
Oh, well, okay. Here I thought I was going to have some time. Got a lot of love for Fallout, but the other thing is that I really got my start in D&D, so the Dark Sun world, which is kind of semi-apocalyptic.
I don't think there's any semi about it. It's totally post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, so you know exactly what I'm talking about there. So yeah, I would have to say Dark Sun, if only because it's this fun, weird mixture of fantasy, and then you can throw in a bit of actual technology along with it as the fantasy and the gods die out. I just like it. This cool mishmash of things.
True fact about Dark Sun, they contracted Brahm to do the art before coming up with the world and built the world around the art that he made.
Nice.
For me, I think my one true post-apocalyptic love is always Mad Max, because I'm old enough to have grown up in the shadow of nuclear preparedness drills. So atomic apocalypses are something that like were heavily on my mind as a kid. So naturally Fallout, keyed into that. I'm the person who has books about like history of nuclear criticality accidents and stuff like that. But because of the sort of slow decline that you can see in the Mad Max films, it's always had a very special place for me. Also because of watching them with my dad when I was a kid.
I want to say that my favorite, I'm might be a little stereotypical, but I love me a good zombie apocalypse.
Oh, those are very good, yeah.
I don't particularly care what style the zombie is or what event kicked it off. I've seen radioactive zombies. I've seen weird, like biological disaster movie or zombies. I love them all. I love anything that has the dead rising and coming back to murder everybody who made them.
Do you have a favorite zombie apocalypse movie?
Oh, is it the one with Cillian Murphy?
28 Days Later.
Yeah, that one.
That is also my favorite.
It's my
very quick answer.
That movie woke me up to the hotness that is Cillian Murphy. Like I'd always appreciated him as an actor, but it was that movie that made me go, "Oh, he's hot too. All right, cool."
Right now, I'm still struggling to think of like a good post-apocalyptic setting. I think if it's gonna have to be post-apocalyptic, it's got to be zombies. But I don't know. I'm also just used to like that apocalyptic setting instead of post. I prefer like during the apocalypse.
Sort of like World War Z, where things are like currently collapsing.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think that that's the best for zombie games too, or for zombie settings too. It's got to be like while everything's actively going wrong, no more than like a month after the event.
I do like. I will say that I do like the absolute batshit craziness of Z Nation. Mind you, that is actually shot like where I used to live, as in I used to live there yesterday, and not anymore. At the time of recording. So I mean, I do just absolutely love that show. It is just crazy, but it is very funny.
I know I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever seen. Oh no, wait! I used to be on a Twitch show with one of the actors from that, which is where I've heard of it. The woman who played Dr. Murch.
Mm. But yeah, they I just like how they kept essentially ramping up the action and stakes and intensity of everything after each season. I think that's just what drew me to it. Is that it just kept getting crazier and crazier.
I have a role-playing game recommendation for you, Vironz, if you like particular types of apocalypses, and that is if you ever have a chance to check out the role-playing game Tribe 8, it might be up your alley because it has zombies and it's got magic and it's got weird dead gods.
All right, I'm gonna have to look that up after we wrap up our recording. Well, thank you.
Not to
Very
be confused with the
interesting.
lesbian punk band of the same name.
Well, and to be honest, there's a reason why I typed in TTRPG in my search engine when I looked that up, because I know Rule 34 exists, and I don't want to.
Wise.
Always be specific in your Google searches, folks.
Yes. To get us a little bit back on track, ever so slightly.
Just back on track. You mean across from the perpendicular that we were going? Got it.
Yeah, we're angling back in a little bit. Overthinker has a question for us. They want to know what each of us thinks is the biggest wasteland creature you alone could defeat, and how would you do it?
Jeez.
As ourselves or as our character?
It sounded like he wanted to know as yourself.
Oh.
Maybe a rad roach is kind of my answer, just by stomping on it, because I am not big. I am not overly strong. And I have a bad knee, so I kind of hobble around everywhere already, so Wasteland isn't really a setting where I would thrive.
Yeah, I personally don't know much of anything about the Fallout setting. Just not really my thing. So I'm gonna say dust bunnies. I could handle a dust bunny.
He can sweep like a mofo.
Yep.
You're really good with a push broom.
Basically.
Yeah, let's see. Alereg, what do you think you could take?
I mean, I've got, from where I live, I know I can get access to a number of various items to assist me. So, based upon that alone, I probably could take out a Deathclaw if I really needed to.
Oh, shit.
I don't know if I could go as high as Deathclaw just because they're pretty sneaky, and I'm not sure I would see one coming.
I'm saying I could, not that I will.
Oh, yeah.
Two different things there.
It would really depend on the circumstance, because I am a very good shot with a rifle, and I could get access to fairly large caliber firearms without much issue. But I don't think I'd want to get in close with anything. As long as I could see it coming, we're talking, maybe heavily armored raider, crazed super mutant, but not like super mutant with a rotary cannon or anything, because then I'll just turn into red mist.
I am of the lucky situation, I guess, where I have enough military contacts that if I actually asked for a Maudus, I could get one.
See, that's a step beyond me. All of my military contacts are in the Navy and on other continents.
Yeah, I'm just lucky enough that I can get that. So,
you know what? That's another thing in Wasteland wise. I can't see well. I truly would not thrive at all. I would barely survive.
Well, thankfully this is all theoretical.
Yeah. And to be fair, they didn't ask you what you could survive. They asked you what you could kill. There's a difference between surviving a long period of time and what you can kill in the Wasteland. There's two different things there,
well,
too.
I mean, in that case, if given enough time to research and gather what I need, I think I could take most things. I wouldn't survive the experience.
Yeah. I don't think, that's pretty much it. I don't think I would survive the experience unless it's no bigger than a rat roach.
Yeah, that's kind of like a person in armor. That's something I'm comfortable saying. Yeah, I could shoot one of those dead, depending on the circumstance, as long as I'm not surprised.
We're going to move on to our next segment, drinking our and begin drinking our cups. What actually inspired your characters?
I'm going to let Adarael go in the first on this one.
Let's see here. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to make, but I was like, what do I usually make when I play a Fallout computer game? And it's all over the place, but I tend to go back to the sort of archetype of the wandering gunslinger, because there is a fairly Western cinematic bent to most of the Fallout games. So it's like the wanderer who blows into town, who solves problems with a gun, not with like law at their side, but like there for justice. And I was talking to Solomon, and I mentioned he mentioned the mysterious stranger perk, and I was like, maybe this is a guy who's got the mysterious stranger perk, so he dresses in the opposite colors of the black fedora and black trench coat, but wants to be that kind of person that shows up to right the wrongs. And from there, we just sort of riffed on each other and decided that Carter's entire reference point for everything before the collapse of civilization is movies. Like, his vault has plenty of like science textbooks, but no history textbooks. So he assumes that people before the bombs dropped were all like straight out of the Maltese Falcon and Casablanca.
That's adorable. I love everything about that. Although you just answered one of my questions I was going to ask later. So.
Shoot. I have a partial, if it's the one that I think, I've got a partial answer for that too.
I'll also say that also sounds like you're doing the white suit to the black suit. It sounds a lot like Mad Magazine's Spy X Spy.
Accidental, but also awesome.
Yeah. For me, if you guys are lovers of old movies, Dr. Strangelove, also known as How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Loved the Bomb, the doctor in there, the good doctor, is a former Nazi German scientist that then has become the adjutant to the president himself in the movie. The actor that's portraying the doctor in this case is portraying also like 3 other different roles, sometimes in the same room that he's portraying the same role that he is as the doctor. I think he's like the doctor, the president, a colonel, a captain, and I want to say there's at least one other that he's playing as 5 different roles, all in the same movie. Amazingly talented actor. But it was all based around this idea of like, okay, I'm going to be slightly mad scientist, but also somewhat caring, and trying to figure out like, all right, how do I make this more myself? And screw it, let's make him a Brotherhood of Steel. Brotherhood of Steel is kind of fun. And it just went from there.
Interesting.
I strongly recommend any Fallout fans watch Dr. Strangelove if they have not, because it's an excellent film.
Yes.
Well, to branch off of that a little bit, I would like to know what each of yours personal feelings for the Brotherhood of Steel are.
Depends upon who the leader is, I guess. Under the early Maxons, I can understand them, like when they first broke off. Then under Lions, I actually sympathize with them, because Elder Lions was actually a splinter faction of Brotherhood of Steel that actually left the California area to the east, and was actually very empathetic with the rest of the survivors and the raiders and such, and was trying to help heal them, give away technology, use the technology for good instead of just hoard it, and just like, this technology and knowledge is dangerous. We shouldn't allow the humans and humanity to have this. So I like Lion's Brotherhood of Steel, the most recent edition, where it's I want to say grandson of the first Elder Maxon of the Brotherhood of Steel, and Fallout 4, the new Maxon, is too xenophobic, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I had to think a lot about the Brotherhood of Steel before we started because I know that I'm familiar enough with the Lions faction and stuff from having played Fallout 3, but the Brotherhood of Steel on the West Coast I figured would have a fairly unusual reputation because they had a long history of being those xenophobic, you can't have our technology, we're weirdos that live in a hole in the ground type of attitudes. But at the same point, enough of them had gotten in on assisting the creation of the new California Republic initially, even though they're not so into that these days. I was like, I think that Carter's attitude towards them would be the same as towards most people, which is, I'm from a vault and I don't know a lot of people, so I'm going to judge them based on their individual behavior. And if people are in need, I'm going to give them a hand and try and decide for myself. So he's not entirely sure what to make of them other than, well, they certainly have a lot of stations all over the Mojave. This is interesting. What do they know that we don't?
Well, that makes sense. This came up last week. I asked Legacy and Termite, but I'm going to ask you guys too. With Dr. Hoffman, initiate of the Brotherhood of Steel, if things go sideways, do you think he's going to turn code on the party or on the Brotherhood?
I want to say it depends upon what happens when it goes sideways and what is the reasoning behind it. Because the good doctor actually believes very much in Lion's Brotherhood of Steel beliefs and not so much with Maxon's.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to turn on people that he's helping out and require his assistance and have been assisting him. He might leave and be like, I can't associate you with you anymore because of political stuff that's going on. But it doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would out and out turn coat so much as take off coat. I mean, he does. I assume that he's sworn a Hippocratic oath of some variety, being a doctor. Unless he's got a doctorate of English.
No, he does not have a doctorate of English, and technically because there's no universities giving out doctorates at all nowadays, it's more of in how medics during World War II were called doc. They did not actually have a doctorate, but they were the ones that held soldiers together, so they just got the nickname. And so he just kind of got it because he had a knack for healing folks.
You've got a better ability to hold people together than me, or Chanel, which I think would both be, well, we've got some duct tape.
Yeah, and he's going to look at that and say, no, what you want now is to put the duct tape on top of cloth bandages.
Well, all right. What are your guys' individual thoughts on the Institute as well?
I decided that Carter has no idea what the Institute is. And my rationale for that is fairly simple. The Institute was introduced far enough along in the Fallout timeline. And as far as I recall, they were primarily East Coast based. In all of the early Fallout games, 1, 2, and Brotherhood of Steel, there's no mention of synths whatsoever or the Institute, which says to me that people that live in California, the Mojave, stuff like that, probably haven't heard of them because they weren't active enough far enough west. And they also haven't heard of synths because the synths weren't known well enough that far west. And I think people that had lived primarily as wastelanders would have a much higher chance of having heard of them than somebody who came out of a vault. So I was like, he just doesn't have any idea what it is.
In Dr. Hoffman's case, it would be he doesn't know about him at the moment right now is the thing. It's because he's got no clue. If he were to learn about them, he'd be questioning their morals and like ethics. If he were to know what I know about them, he would just outright blast them with as much vitriol and vigor as he could muster.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about that with like if, or probably when Carter finds out about Iris, like, I'm a synth. What's a synth? It's like a robot person. You don't look like you're a Protectron, and just sort of be like, okay, that's weird, but not think about it much, just because it's like if somebody said, I'm actually sentient bread. How does that work?
Yeah. It's like we have a man over here in a white suit that can summon up a Vaquero gunslinger over here. You're not the weirdest thing we've met today.
It's true.
Wow.
So, I mean, what are like some other fun facts about your characters that you were able to share?
Oh, you take that one first, sir.
He's German, like German national born.
Well,
So-
okay, that's gonna. Oh, cool.
Yeah, like he actually is from Germany. The Commonwealth of Europe, I think is what it was actually called at the time. But yeah, so he's not actually American. So him being where he is right now, he's a very long way away from home.
Yeah, I'll say.
How the hell did it get so far away from home?
Boat.
I love the simplicity of that answer. Just
Okay.
boat.
All right, smartass. You and I both know that that's not what I was asking. I kind of figured on a literal level, yeah, it would have to be a boat. But like, why? Question mark?
If I remember correctly, in the nuclear wars, the nuclear fallout of Germany at the time, or I should say, in the before times, before like where Fallout actually takes place, where most of the games take place, I should say, except for Fallout 4, because that's the only game that actually has a little snapshot of what happens before the bombs actually fall. And to be fair, it's a little, very small, maybe half hour at most snapshot that you have before the bombs fall. The actual Commonwealth of Europe is gone by that time period. As in, it's been destroyed, it has gone into economic decline, oil prices and nuclear waste prices have gone up through the roof, so they can't actually hold on to the economy over in Europe at the time. So the running backstory that I have with him, so spilling a bit of tea here, but whatever, is that he actually came over to America on a boat and was able to get inside of a cryo vault situation, and then was able to unfreeze himself. So he is a vault dweller, but he's not, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, he was in a vault, but he wasn't raised in a vault.
Yeah. And then, much akin to like how the Soul Survivor came out, he then was unthawed, came out, and was able to go and traverse into this desolate wasteland that became the rest of the Commonwealth at the time, and then said, this is not what I like. I'm going to try something else. Fell in with Lion's crew. And at that point, though, then Lions went the way of the dodo with Fallout 3 into Fallout 4. And so he made his way west because he doesn't like how Maxon does shit.
Damn, he's got a much more complicated backstory than mine.
Carter watched some movies, decided that being a gunslinger looked cool, and he wanted to fix things and set out to do that.
Mostly, he was not Vault Tech security back in Vault 33. Because he, like, despite the fact that he's very good at shooting people, he was actually a trained nuclear reactor maintenance technician. He's got science as a tag skill and is fairly smart, but he just found, being a reactor tech less interesting than like finding out what's outside. So he petitioned them to open up the Vault 33, see if the world had recovered from nuclear war, set outside along with a couple of other folks from 33, and then set up trade routes between Vault 33 and the nearby towns in the southwestern Mojave, sort of like around what in the games would be the trade routes between Hub and Necropolis.
And
Interesting.
while Carter's trying to fix situations, Hoffman's just trying to fix people.
I mean, people are their own situations, and in a lot of ways, they're much more complicated.
Fair, but it's the physical situations. He doesn't do mental shit.
I will bandage you up. You're having a minty bee. You're on your own, bruh.
Yeah. he doesn't know how to do that. So, like, if you get a boil, I can lance it. If you're having an anxiety attack, I
will prescribe beer and whiskey.
Have some psycho with your anxiety attack.
Oh no. That he would not suggest.
To loop back to an earlier question that Adarael, I think, kind of answered it, but I'm going to ask anyway, just in case there's a further interesting answer. What made you decide to go with the least apocalypse-friendly look for a character? Like white linen? Really?
So there's sort of a two-part answer there. One is one of the things that I like about a lot of the Fallout games is sort of the incongruity of people trying to wear things that obviously they shouldn't be wearing. Like, if you want to have clothing that lasts in the wasteland, you should probably be wearing like deer leathers and, get some Native American type stuff going on. But so many people in the games are like, nope, I got to look like I'm from 1955 and I'll just be stopping by on my way home from work in my Chevy. But like, obviously just like doing very badly at trying to be a real person. And it tied together pretty well with the fact that because I already had a linen jacket that had basically gotten messed up to the point where it's like, I can't really wear this out because it has been stained and like ruined. It works as an outfit for Fallout. Plus I already had the hat. So I was like, hey, I'll just throw this together. This does not require me to sew or stitch anything.
I dig that. Yeah, you when I got your pictures, I was like, really? That's what he went with? All right.
Remember, Carter assumes everybody is supposed to look like obviously the nuclear,
like they just came out of movies. Yeah,
it's like he should look like he is Sam Spade or Rick from Morocco.
Yeah, and to be fair, the games, especially Fallout New Vegas, actually does reflect this. Like, the first scene in New Vegas is Benny in a 3-piece checkered suit about to shoot us in the head. So literally, it's a white and black checkered suit. How the hell he's going to keep it clean? I don't know. He does, though.
It was definitely an interesting experience to get those pictures and go, okay, sure, let's go with that. Let's see what happens. That would be like a whole complication I would give you as a storyteller. I'd be like, oh, you want to wear white linen in the desert during the apocalypse? All right.
There's definitely a certain level of tongue-in-cheek in the setting that I enjoy. That's just sort of like there's a level of ridiculousness that lets you know that the setting doesn't entirely take itself seriously.
Mm-hmm. I get that. All right. I think it's time for us to move on to the Spilling the Tea section. This section is freeform with questions tailored towards WTF moments of the episode, controversies, rumors, hints of love interest, etc. In this section, we'll invite the guests to ask each other any pressing hard questions they might have, or to ask questions of us as the interviewers.
Oh, no. what I wanted to know is like why Dr. Hoffman has like what the inciting incident was to get him to leave the Brotherhood, because obviously he doesn't necessarily agree with them, but I want to know what he was asked to do or not do to get him to go.
He hasn't technically left the Brotherhood. He's still part of it because he's still an initiate. The thing is that he hasn't gone into scribe yet, and so he has a bit more freeform realm with that. And his last orders were from Lions, specifically were to go and help others.
And what's a scribe do in the Brotherhood that sort of requires them to not do what he's doing? Because I don't actually recall.
Scribes in the Brotherhood are the maintenance workers of all of the Paladin and Knight armors and all of the Lancer vertibirds, all of their guns, all of their equipment, all of their experimentations, all of their medicine care, their shipmates. They are basically, if it has to deal with some sort of engine or some sort of medical issue, if it's anything that is not fighting on the front lines, they are technically part of the scribe group.
They're the support crew.
Exactly. And they're very important when you think about it.
That's fair. I was not aware of that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are very angry that he's gone, though. Like, hey, how my armor's not going to polish itself, buddy.
He was an initiate. He was not yet a scribe, so he hadn't actually gotten to the point of being able to even touch power armor, technically.
Yeah, I'm curious also what you think will happen when everybody else finds out about Iris. Because, I know that Carter's not going to understand what she is, but, like, I'm not sure what the outside, like, the Brotherhoods think of that either.
I honestly don't know, if only because, much like how you said earlier, they're West Coast, and the Institute is very much East Coast. So I don't even know if the Knights, like Knight Helen and Knight Arthur, would even know what a synth is. I'm not even sure the Scribe Portner would even know what a synth is. So.
Okay, fair, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also know that Solomon has been bandying about the idea of doing more stuff with Fallout. Supposing that he does, what are some of Hoffman's longer term plans, assuming we survive and don't, get horribly irradiated?
He would like to become a scribe eventually, but he wants to see the leadership change. So he's kind of waiting on that moment of, all right, this is cool and all, but give it like 10 years for the current elder to die and then see where the next one goes. We'll see how it goes from there.
Gotcha.
The entire premise of the Brotherhood of Steel, how you gain ranks in it, as far as I remember, is via merits. It's not based upon like political birth and such. It's based upon what you do. So if he doesn't do anything remarkable, he's not going to go up from initiate. And he knows this.
So if you're boring, you get to stay at home.
Kind of, yeah.
Rude.
The other thing is that normally initiates are assigned to either a scribe or a paladin or anyone else like that for training. His died off somewhere back east. So, yeah.
Whoops.
I will say not his fault. Spilling the tea on that much, at least. It's not his fault. So. Question for you, though, Adarael. I know that, as Legacy put it for Chanel, it is if I remember correctly, the biker lesbian was what she described her character as. With how close she and Termite's character Iris are getting, do you think there's going to be something there?
It seems to me like Chanel, while she has self-described as biker lesbian, I think she's more interested in her machines and running her shop than any interpersonal relations. And whoever it is going to have to be absolutely loved by Macy, that's for sure. You got to pass the dog test for anything.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair.
Well, for what it's worth, I ship Iris and Chanel.
I'm just thinking about like all of the mechanical implications there. And I'm like, I don't know how synths work.
So in this case, because Iris is a Gen 3 synth.
Is she like a replicant from Blade Runner in that case?
Human body, slightly mechanical mind.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that would work.
Yep. I think there's maybe, I want to say, like a neural implant, which is the big thing, and then maybe a few small augmentations to like bone structure and such to make them stronger. But that's about it, really.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a ship that would work.
Interesting.
Even if it wasn't a submarine that was going into the deep water dives of fading to black, yes.
I do have one more question for both of you, because Macy's come up a couple of times now and it's gotten me thinking. If Carter or Dr. Hoffman were to have a pet in the wasteland, what would it be and why?
Oh. Yeah, you go first on that one. I think I have a notion, though.
And why is it a cat for Carter?
I don't actually think that Carter would have a cat. I think that he would associate with cats if they chose to associate with him, and he would be fine with their presence. But I think if he had a pet, it would be a gecko, because geckos are neat and weird and good desert survivors, and they're not like anything that existed in a vault. You could find a cat in a vault. You could find a dog in a vault. You probably can't find a gecko in a vault. And because it's sort of like weird and different, he would go for it. Also because it would remind him of sci-fi B movies.
Interesting.
I feel like Dr. Hoffman would go one step further into kind of a weird sort of situation and would have a rad scorpion.
That is exactly what I thought.
Probably with a modified stinger, though, to do like anesthetics and such. A numbing agent alone, not a blood clotting agent, if you will.
I think if Hoffman was slightly more of a mad doctor, I would suggest a Wanamingo, which is some deep cut Fallout lore that they now ignore.
If he was going to do like a crazy something like that, Mad Doctor thing, he'd probably go for a Yagwai.
Are those the bears?
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense too.
Yep.
No bears.
And if only because I made this big furry animal my friend, just so I can cuddle with it. What? Yep.
Priorities.
Uh-huh.
Well, all right then. I think with that slightly disturbing mental image in mind, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for listening. These episodes are dropped Thursdays at noon for the $5 and up tiers on our Patreon, and they're released to the public 1 month later. So if you want to keep up with them in real time, please think about subscribing so you can be up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.